Mike here. In today's video, we are going to do a by-the-book oil change on a Royal Enfield Classic 350. This will also cover the Royal Enfield Bullet 350, the Classic Going 350, the Meteor 350, and also the Hunter 350. Basically, any of the 350J series motor Royal Enfields, this procedure will cover. Let's get this out of the way from the start. I am not currently a professional motorcycle mechanic. I am a certified motorcycle technician. I have worked at a Royal Enfield dealer as a service advisor. If you are not comfortable doing the work yourself, take your motorcycle to the dealership or a qualified mechanic. Now that I've got that out of the way, let's get into this. When I say by the book, I mean online, because the official Royal Enfield service manual, at least what we have access to here in North America, actually it's called RENA, Royal Enfield North America, is dated July 2023. To my knowledge, there is not a newer version of the service manual. If you happen to find the service manual online as a PDF file or a printout that's available on eBay, keep in mind it's not official and it's probably not complete. There's 3 sections to it. One's the main service manual, then there's a wiring diagram, and then there's a third part that goes over codes that you need if you're plugged into the diagnostic port. But you have to have the special tool for that anyhow, which means you'd be going to the dealer. What I mean by the book, this is gonna drive you guys nuts. So Royal Enfield doesn't like to publish procedures per se, because in the service manual, they assume that you're already a qualified technician working on their bikes. You already have basic knowledge of how to work on a motorcycle. So they don't necessarily do step-by-step procedures for each process. So oil change does not have a covered step-by-step procedure in the service manual. It's bits and pieces all over the manual. I'm going to talk about it here in a second. So exactly where is oil change covered in the official factory service manual? Good thing you asked. As of July 2023, which is the most current that I can find, you start on pages 21 and 23, Chapter 2, Technical Specifications on Oil Grade, Capacity, and Torques. Pages 28 29, Chapter 3, Periodic Maintenance Schedule. PMS, when to do it, what to do, a note about the strainer. Page 47, Chapter 5.1, Components removal from the engine, the main drain plug plus strainer. Page 52, Chapter 5.2, engine removal from the main frame, goes over oil filter cover access. Pages 69 and 70, Chapter 5.4, Engine dismantling, detailed drain of the oil plus filter removal. Page 116, Chapter 5.3, Engine assembly to the frame, goes through refill instructions. Page 156 through 157, Chapter 5.6 and 5.8, Engine inspection and assembly, new O-rings, filter orientation, and level check. Pages 159 through 160, Chapter 5.6.33 and Chapter 5.6.39, strainer cleaning and final assembly steps. And it doesn't even go over the 17mm bolt with the crush washer, which is an additional passage that needs to be drained out when you go through the oil change procedure. Making this video so it's essentially a combination of all of these factory steps as one clear and concise guide for doing what's essentially the factory oil change. As you can tell, it's kind of a mess doing work on a Royal Enfield if you're going to rely on the service manual for a step-by-step procedure, because in many cases it is for reference only. It doesn't really do procedures. Don't ask me why, that's just how they do it. I'm going to set this laptop down for now, and then we're going to just go through the tools that we need and the parts, and then we'll refer back to this as it's necessary to cover each of the steps of the oil change. You're going to need a 3/8 drive ratchet, just a small extension for 3/8. I need a 5mm Allen driver, 8mm socket, a 17mm combination wrench, a torque wrench that's 3/8 drive that's going to get you from a minimum of 8 to 25 Newton meters. Gloves are convenient. Not everybody uses them, but they're like, I don't like getting my hands filthy, stinking dirty all the time. So Plus the chemicals can harm your skin. You're gonna need some kind of a cleaning agent. I like to use a non-chlorinated brake cleaner. You'll need this to clean up the old oil and the surfaces to make sure they're clean for the new parts to go on. Some kind of rag, or I like these blue shop towels because they're disposable. An oil drain pan of some type, doesn't have to be specifically one like this one, but it needs to be clean because, believe it or not, an oil drain pan is a tool. When you drain your oil into it, you need to be able to look at the oil to determine whether or not you've got any issues going on, because you'll see it in the oil, like glitter from metallic things from inside the motor or anything like that. And if you got a filthy, stinking pan that's just full of trash and dirt like that, how do you know if that dirt came out of the bike or if it was crap that was just in the pan? You need a good pan that is clean, so that when you drain your dirty oil into it, you can inspect it to make sure everything's good. Alrighty, I made myself a list. These part numbers are gonna be in the description. First thing you're gonna need is one of these guys right here, a 1570012 B as in Bravo, an O-ring oil strainer cover. So this is the O-ring that goes on the metal cover that is underneath. It's the strainer cover, but it's also your main oil drain. Next thing you're gonna need is oil filter itself. That is a part number 1570120/B as in Bravo. It's just described as a filter comp engine oil. Next thing you're gonna need is one of these crush washers. That part number is 574325/B as in Bravo. And lastly, what you're gonna need is you're gonna need this guy here. This is the O-ring for the oil filter cover. RLN, so that's Romeo Lima November 00015/A as in Alpha. Royal Enfield recommends ELF oil, at least for North America. That's what they recommend. Most Royal Enfield dealers actually have ELF branded oil. I believe it's a semi-synthetic, correct me if I'm wrong on that. It will certainly be a 15W50. I use this stuff. This is Swiss-made Motorex. This stuff you can buy on Amazon, and this is a full synthetic. It's a 15W50. It's the same weight. It's a 4T. There's going to be links for some of this stuff down below in the description from some Amazon affiliate links. That's where I bought it from. You can get it at a good price. You can also get it in huge quantities, like a big jug versus the quarts here. You're gonna need 2 quarts or 2 liters essentially of your motor oil. It won't take all of it, it'll take most of it. This is something that's not in the service manual, but it's something I like to put in there because it helps quiet down some of the valve train noise, which these J series engines certainly have. This is Lucas oil stabilizer for motorcycles. This tends to quiet it down quite a bit. And it also is perfectly fine for wet clutches, so it doesn't harm the bike in any way. You can buy this on Amazon. This is way more of the oil stabilizer than what you're gonna need for this bike because the oil capacity is so small. So essentially 1 bottle of this is gonna cover roughly 4 oil changes. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go through the exact procedure that is in the service manual, but it's scattered everywhere. We already went through all the different pages and chapter numbers. I have done for you guys all the hard work. I've taken all that stuff, I've compiled it into one list of something the factory should have done, the complete step-by-step guide for the official oil change for a J Series 350 engine from Royal Enfield. Park the bike on a center stand, or in my case, I've got it strapped down to the lift. Be careful, you don't want it to fall over. Start the motor and let it warm up for about 2 to 3 minutes, then shut it back off. Crack open the filler cap on the side of the motor. It's on the right-hand side. It's up on the top there. Can't miss it. To remove the strainer cover, which is your main oil drain, off the bottom of the motor. Oil strainer that's up inside of there, there's the O-ring on the cap. So you're gonna pull the cap off. You're gonna pull the little strainer out. You're gonna let the oil drain out of the bike. You're going to remove the secondary oil drain. This is the 17mm bolt that the service manual doesn't even go through. Has the crush washer. It's over on this side of the motor. It's kind of underneath. We'll go through that when we actually do the procedures. Let both drains completely empty. Just let the bike sit there, I don't know, for like 20, 30 minutes to make sure that you're not getting additional oil drained out of it. You want to try and drain as much as you possibly can. From the strainer cover / main oil drain, you want to pull the strainer actually out of there, keep track of the O-ring and all of that stuff, and you want to clean the strainer off so that it's good to go to reinstall into the bike. You want to remove the oil filter cartridge, and you do that by removing the cartridge cover, and then you pull the oil filter out. You need to soak the new cartridge. It is recommended by the factory to soak that new cartridge in some oil before you reinstall it into the motor. So it's kind of a combination step, but you want to go ahead and soak the cartridge in some clean brand new motor oil and then put it back into the motor. You're going to take the O-ring and you're going to install it onto the cartridge cover on the side of the motor, and you're going to bolt it down. It's going to be installing the new crush washer on that 17 mil bolt and then tightening it back up into the bottom of the motor. You're reinstalling the strainer screen back up into the bottom of the motor, and then you're going to put a new O-ring on the strainer / drain cover, and then you're going to bolt it up with the two 8mm bolts. You refill the bike with oil. You're going to be looking at just under 2 quarts or 1.7 liters. Fill it up to you're just about halfway on the sight glass. That's good enough until you start it. Reinstall the filler cap on the side of the motor. Just screw it back down. Don't reef on it because you're going to end up having to pull it off to top it off anyhow. Start the motor, let it idle for 2 to 3 minutes, then shut it back off. Look at the sight glass. You make sure that the oil level is between the minimum and the maximum amount. I like to have it just a hair under the maximum. And if you need to top it off, then you're good. Just check the bike for leaks. That's it. You just go around, look at all the covers that you put on, the 17 mil bolts, make sure everything's tightened and it's not leaking. Now we're all ready to go. Let's actually get into the procedure. So one additional step that you may have if you got one of these guys, this is the factory skid plate, but you cannot get to that 17 mil additional drain bolt, and you can't get to the strainer / drain cover unless you remove this. So on my bike, this is actually my very first step that I do before I do anything else. So if you got one of these skid plates on your bike, I recommend highly that you ditch the Allen cap screws that they give you. They look nice, they're shiny, but they're junk. They strip out so easy. And every time you change your oil, you got to take the skid plate off. I replaced mine with stainless. It's a 10mm just bolt with a split lock washer and then a flat washer, and it's all stainless. And then on top of that, I've used a little bit of copper grease, anti-seize, so that it doesn't corrode in place, because this plate here prevents a lot of crap from getting kicked up onto your engine. So for me, this is step number 1. I got to remove this. 2 at the front, 2 at the back that are kind of underneath. Probably a good time to check this to see if there's any leaks on it, and also to clean it up. So step 1, again, would be to put the bike up on the center stand. I am strapped down and clamped up in the lift. If you don't have a center stand, try to get the bike level so that it doesn't fall over. So step 2 is going to be start your bike and let it idle for 2 minutes. My garage door is open right now, so I'm not going to asphyxiate myself on carbon monoxide. 2 minutes. Next step is going to be to remove the cap, the oil fill cap. So I like to set all of my stuff on a nice clean towel. Helps me keep track of things and to make sure that things stay clean and organized. Next step is going to be to take the strainer cover off. These are your 2 8mm bolts on this guy. I've also got my drain pan ready to go. Keep in mind that the engine might be warm from letting it idle there for 2 minutes. So just be careful, don't burn yourself. I'm going to crack these a little bit, then I'm going to get my pan ready to go underneath of it. With the bolts loose, I can now get my arm under here. You're definitely going to let the engine cool off a little bit before you do this, because your arm's going to be pretty damn close to the exhaust. You don't want to burn yourself. I'm just holding the cover up with one hand here so I can get the bolts out. There's the second bolt. So if you keep your hand on the cover here, it's not going to gush oil all over you when you're taking the bolts out. You may need a screwdriver. Nope. Mine came right off. You can see that's where that O-ring goes. This guy is the additional drain that is on your J-Series 350 Royal Enfield engine. You're going to need a 17 mil wrench to get at it. And it's pretty simple. You just remove it, right? There's not a lot of room to work on this guy down here, so you got to be careful so you don't scratch your frame. There we go. So before I take that completely off, now that I got it loose, I want to do one more thing, which is not actually in the procedure, but I highly recommend it. What you need is some aluminum, like tin foil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually form my own drain, because when I pop this cover off the side of the motor, oil is going to get everywhere, and I don't want to make a huge mess. So all you do is you just make yourself a little funnel, as it were, to drain oil away from your bike. I'm going to use a fairly long piece because I'm going to double it up. I'm going to fold it in half. It's easier to feed it in with the folded edge going in this way. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to just take my tin foil and I'm going to feed it in between the frame and the engine. At the bottom, I'm just kind of pulling it to a V so that I'm encouraging the oil to go in one spot into my pan. So now that I got my tin foil in place here, I'm going to reach in, take that 17 mil bolt out. Tin foil is the coolest funnel you'll ever have. I use it for all kinds of stuff. This 17 mil bolt out of here. See, there's a good amount of oil that's draining out of that. So you don't want to skip it. While those two drains are draining out, I'm going to go ahead and remove the cartridge cover on the side of the motor. Use one hand to try and hold it on, but there she goes. I mean, yeah, it's still going to drip down, but at least you're making less of a mess to clean up. You're not getting it on your frame. You're not getting it on the exhaust. Honestly, they should have something like that in the manual. That's what I'm doing this for. So just to kind of contain some of my mess, I'm going to have my blue shot towel here, get the cover out of my way. There's the cartridge filter. Keep in mind that the spring faces this way and the rubber seal goes that way. There we go. We're going to inspect the paper medium in this later to make sure there's no sparkly bits in it. For now, we'll let the oil drain out the bottom until it's not dripping anymore, and we're going to clean up all of our surfaces. We still need to pull the strainer out of the bottom of the motor and clean that as well. All you got to do to inspect your filter is just to go through your fingers and then pull out the pleats. And I mean, I don't see any debris in this. I've gone around it a couple of times. But it's a good practice to do while it's draining. It certainly doesn't say this in the service manual. The other thing I'm going to do while I'm waiting is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clean all these surfaces off. Do not spray your cleaner directly into the motor. I mean, come on, man. Use some common sense here. Yeah, cleaned a lot of that off. The engine's pretty much done draining. Now what we can do is get rid of our tin foil here. So I'm basically just pulling it through and crumpling it in my hand as I go to capture all the oil. And then there we go. I had all kinds of oil that is now on that and in my drain pan that would have been going down the side of my motor. And I don't have oil on my frame. I don't have it on the exhaust. It really makes life easier here. You want to go ahead and clean all this off and clean out the area that the cartridge. I want to take the strainer out. And you just reach up in there while this is draining. And you pull it down. Just like that. So that's what the strainer looks like. It has one O-ring on it, and I'm going to inspect this guy as well. And as long as everything looks good, I'm going to clean this out with my non-chlorinated brake cleaner, and then I'm going to start cleaning all the mating surfaces so I can put this thing back together. Alrighty, let's play my favorite game here. How much oil does Mike get on the garage floor? What I'm doing is I'm inspecting it here, and I'm looking for anything that would be of concern. This oil looks fine. Let's see if Mike can make a mess today. Does he make it to the end? That last little bit out. When I was wiping it out, I didn't see any debris in there. So cleaned it now, and it's good to go for the next time I got to do an oil change. Royal Enfield recommends that you pre-soak their filter before you install it. I'm just going to do exactly as they say, pre-soak the filter. I've cleaned the strainer. Now I've got my new gaskets, crush washer, and then all of these little parts here I'm going to clean up and remove the old gaskets out of it and get it prepped so I can put the bike back together and then top it off and we'll be done. So the next step that Royal Enfield wants you to do from the service manual is to reinstall the filter after it's been soaked. With filter cover for the cartridge filter, I've installed a new O-ring. If you notice, it has these little nubs on the O-ring. That's what holds it in the cover. And then reinstall the bolts. We're making a mess. Put a little piece of paper towel down there. Spring faces outward. Pretty obvious when this goes in because that side's with the O-ring. You can't turn it around. I guess you could try, but yeah, the spring faces outwards. So in that goes. On the cover goes. And we'll start the Allen cap screws here. I'm just pushing it with my hand. to bottom the filter out because you got spring pressure you got to overcome here. I like to get these hand tight. Of course, I got a little bit of oil from the pre-soak on the filter, so I'm gonna wipe that up real quick. So for torque, I'm going with 10 Newton meters. It's a range of 8 to 12. There's a range for the 8mm bolts on the strainer cover / drain cover. 10's right in the middle for both of them. So I think 10, you're pretty safe with that. Try to, clamp it down with equal force. There's 1, 2, 3. That's all torqued and good to go. Next thing is going to be your 17mm bolt and your new crush washer here. For that 17mm bolt there's no actual torque specification in the factory service manual. In fact, it doesn't even talk about removing it, which to me is nuts because quite a bit more oil came out of that. So I'm going with the traditional German standard of guten tight. Just don't over tighten it or you'll strip it out, right? So all I've done here, I've tightened the bolt by hand until I feel it bottom out against that washer. Since it's already bottomed out, I should not have to reef on this thing to tighten it. And that's it. I would say I probably got about 1/8 of a turn on there. Yeah, that's guten tight now. Next step will be to replace the strainer and cover. So I just put the new O-ring in the strainer cover. The strainer goes in with this little nipple towards the bottom, the O-ring towards the top. So it goes up into the motor this way. So the strainer just goes up into there like that. Give her a push, just like that. You should see that it's mostly in there and only just that little bit sticks out. Then put the cover up in there. Start up those bolts. And again, we got our torque wrench. Same specification, I'm doing 10 Newton meters. That is now installed. Take a little bit of the brake cleaner and just wipe off the motor. I like to keep things as clean as I can in case I do have any leaks or any issues. I can catch them right away. So the next step is just to fill it up with oil. Talking 1.7 liters. And again, I'm doing mine a little different. I am adding my oil stabilizer here. Put this in first. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do it. But if you put it in first, when you put the engine oil in on top of it, it kind of helps wash it down. If you end up going with this recommendation, you'll get 4 oil changes out of 1 bottle of stabilizer just because of the oil capacity on the bike. You want to fill this so it's at the halfway mark. Not too little, not too much, just right. And if you watch, you should see the oil level come up. Now, I may not show it from the camera angle, but from my angle, that's about halfway full there on the sight glass. Replace the cap real quick. And I would say at this point, I would stop for 1 second and wipe the bike down. Even though it's not in the instructions, take the time and wipe everything down before you do the initial start. If you got any oil residue on anything, now's the time to wipe it off and not after you've already started running the motor and getting it hot and then making stains on your pipes. Now that I think I've gone OCD on it and made sure I got all my grubby paw prints and all the oily stuff off, and I got new gloves on so I'm not just tracking more oil all over everything I just cleaned. Now's the time to start it up and then recheck the oil level. Again, I got the garage cracked, so I don't have to worry about suffocating myself here. And that's long enough. So now I'll just give it like a minute or two, let the oil settle back down, and we'll double check the level and we'll be just about done. Alrighty, so I let it settle down for about 2 minutes or so. And right now, all I'm doing is just topping it up. I am just below that full mark on the sight glass, so that's perfect. The very last step, after you've cleaned everything up and you got everything topped off, is just to start it. Let it run. And I'm just doing this even though it's an additional step. I'm double checking for leaks just to make sure everything's clean. So I have the one additional step here of putting my my skid plate back on. All done. That wraps up the oil change on the Classic 350J series. Remember, this is gleaned from the factory service manual, even though they don't actually specify a step-by-step guide for changing your oil. Plus, I added a few little tips in there to just help you guys out along the way, make things a little easier for you, make it a little neater. If you found the video of any use, please drop a comment below. I know there's a ton of videos that are out there on how to do oil changes on a Classic 350 or any of the J Series bikes. To be honest, none of those actually cover it the way the service manual would actually tell you how to do it if it was in a procedure. But it's scattered to the wind, so I guess it doesn't matter, does it? To reset the service light, it's very simple. I'm not gonna actually record this. I'm just gonna tell you how to do it. With the bike on, you go with the info button, go to trip odometer 2, press and hold that info button in on the switch cube. Shut the bike off, give it about 10, 12 seconds, 15 seconds, something like that. Turn it back on, keep holding it down. You keep holding it down until the flashing wrench stops flashing and it goes away. If you aren't at the service interval, you won't see the wrench. If you're changing your oil early, you know, at the beginning of the season like I am, I don't have that service indicator yet, so it's hard to show you what it looks like to reset it, which is why I'm not recording it. But there are videos out there that cover that. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you found any value in this video, please give it a like, hit the bell notification, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down there. I appreciate y'all watching, and until I see everybody again, ride safe.